People who have been catfished. How did you find out? So, I've been catfished, but not in a romantic way, via a friendship. Many years ago, I started talking to a guy named Zach. He lived in Pennsylvania, nice lad, we spoke daily on MSN. We did this for a year or two. We never bothered going on webcam with each other, though. He told me about his family, his mother and his sister had left him alone. He had never met his dad, though. He had heard stories of him being a complete jerk to his mom. One day, he came online and just didn't seem right. I was asking what was up, had something happened at school with friends, etc. He told me he had to go on webcam, so he did. So the webcam turns on and there's this girl. She looked about 14, he was 16. Anyway, I had been talking to her the whole time. Except I hadn't at the same time. Zach died a few years back. When he died, I have no idea what happened to him, his little sister took on his personality. She'd finally told her mom she's been speaking to me and her mom explained a few things to me. She believed she was Zach a lot of the time. She spoke like she was him, told people she was him. So the whole time I had been talking to a personality of a mentally ill girl. I was shocked and upset. I really enjoyed speaking with Zach, but to think he was never actually alive in the time I was talking to him, it's a pretty strange one. I still struggle to get my head around it. I just wish I was a little older at the time so I could have understood more of what was going on. This was about 10 years ago, so now I can only piece together bits of the story. Next story. There was a guy who was befriending girls in my high school and sending creepy PMs and hitting on all of them. A buddy of mine decided to make a fake Facebook profile to F with him. It took less than 24 hours for her to get a friend request. He spent about 10 minutes chatting before the guy asked for a nip pic. We were going to call it off then, but I whipped out my nipple and I took a picture. I'm a dude and a pretty hairy one at that, and we sent the picture and the dude started talking about how hot it was. We stopped after that mostly because we were laughing too hard. I like to think that somewhere a dude pleasured himself to a picture of my hairy nipple. Next story. I've been catfished several times. In most cases, it was the typical person putting on a front to feel attractive or to remove themselves from reality. The most extreme instance was a lovely 20-something Italian girl turning out to be a pudgy 14-year-old black kid. After they would come clean, they'd often ask to remain friends, or have the gall to expect a romantic relationship, but I could never have a relationship founded on insecurity and lying. The absolute worst instance was this girl called Alex. Alex was not a physically attractive girl, but she had many talents, ballet, writing, music, etc., that would normally help counteract that. I have to assume that she just got caught in the superficial world of being a teenager and felt like she wasn't good enough. I'm no better, though. I'm physically attractive and pursued similarly attractive girls. She was a friend of a friend and developed a crush on me. I rejected her but continued speaking to her in a friendly capacity. Then, the weird things started happening. She then mentioned a friend of hers, Chloe, who saw my pictures and was into me. She gave me a picture of this gorgeous gal and she would introduce us via AIM, MySpace. I fell pretty fast for that face and her in general, but it felt weird. I would often ask to meet, but extremely strange situations would always come up preventing that. The last instance of it was, sorry, I suddenly flew to Ireland. And I became fed up with it, and I broke it off. There was a silence for several months, but then another girl popped up, and the cycle repeated. You would be surprised how often this happened. For some reason, Alex developed a tell. All these girls, strange girls whom I'd never heard of before, would introduce themselves by saying, hey, I'm X, a friend of Alex's. And I became suspicious and weeded out the most recent girl for information. She relinquished her email password to me. It was as hard as, you should totally tell me your password, haha, and I started snooping around on there. And her Vampire Freaks account. It turns out that I wasn't the only person she had been doing this to. One fellow seemed to realize pretty quickly that she wasn't who she said she was. But damn, this other dude? He lived in Australia and bought plane tickets to come see Chloe. Alex waited until he arrived in the US before admitting what was happening. And I could be sugarcoating it in my memory. Maybe she never revealed the truth to him. She left him stranded in a strange country. I tried confronting Alex about it, but of course she wouldn't face the fact and own up. There was enough evidence to settle it in my mind, though, and that was the last time I spoke to Alex or anyone claiming to be her friend. Next story. When off at university, I was led on by a girl for about 1.5 months before coming home for the Christmas break. She said stuff like, I love you and I miss you, And I was a bit suspicious since, while I did have her on Facebook, I couldn't recall when/if I'd actually met her. But at the time, I was in a bit of a poor state emotionally, so to feel like someone gave a crap about me, it felt amazing. We talked on the phone when I got home, had long talks, including phone sex, rawr, and tried to set up times to meet. Then she just vanishes. No messages, texts, calls, etc. Poof, just like that. I give up trying to get a hold of her and I go about my business. A couple of months later, I'm back at uni and she resurfaces, claiming she was in the hospital. I'm still a bit cautious, but I let this slide. We keep on chatting and such, and she's dropping her usual I love yous. And it's not too long before I go home, so I went to confront her when I'm back. But nope, poof, she's gone again. Not to mention that a buddy of mine at uni told me she'd been going after him as well. Fool me twice. Next story. I found out a few weeks ago that my pictures have been used for catfishing for over 10 years. Women my age have been pretending to be a guy a few years younger than me and has been in an online relationship with two girls that started when they were 11 years old. This included making over 15 Facebook profiles of my family and friends' pictures with fake names and over 8 Twitter accounts. There may be more, I just haven't found them yet. They even went as far as to make phone recordings of my Facebook videos and uploaded them to YouTube along with pictures of me intertwined with pictures of one of the girls with a love song behind it. Then they created a twin brother for me and photoshopped me into pictures of myself to make twin pictures. One of the twins died at some point, and the original me used to check in at a crematorium with a memory every now and again. And the woman doing this lives within 10 miles of me, but I have no idea who she is. I spent about 4 hours at the police station yesterday trying to describe it in a statement. I wish I was making this all up, as it makes no sense to me at all. All right, everybody, so who do you think it is? I think it's an ex. It could also be an enemy, a girl he rejected, or a girl that just is too scared to approach him. But I think it was actually, no, I don't think it was an ex. I think it was somebody he went on 2-3 dates with and just something snapped. That was their breaking point. And they said, I'm going to become this person and give birth to his fake twin brother. Anyway, next story. So I used to volunteer to be an underage decoy, where I would go on chat rooms and pretend to be a 15-year-old girl. I would go into adult chat rooms and instantly I would get flooded with chat requests from men all over. I would chat with them and I would find out their location and tell them that I'm only located a few towns over or maybe an hour or two away. The point of the conversations was to arrange a meeting with the men for the intent of sex with a minor, in which case we would be able to turn over the evidence to the local police. Evidence meaning chat logs, but also us recording the webcams of them self-pleasuring. Lots of guys really love to self-pleasure in front of a webcam thinking there's a 15-year-old girl on the other end watching. And we would never bring up the topic of sex first. We wait for them to bring it up. And even then, we just act curious or ignorant and let the men dig themselves deeper into the hole. We make it very clear that they are talking to a 15-year-old girl. Some men have even shared links to adult content. I had long-term conversations with some men, making up a fake story for my character to make her more believable over the course of months. I only showed them safe for work pictures here and there, never video, as much as they would beg. And they believed it. Hook, line, and sinker. Next story. Met a girl on Tinder that had put on a fair bit of weight since she took her profile pictures. I didn't want to blow her off on that alone, even though it seemed kind of effed up that she would mislead me. So we watched Netflix like we planned. It was kind of like the elephant in the room though, keck, and we definitely weren't watching Netflix the way I had imagined. Just sitting on the couch, I started getting super awkward at one point, and I could tell she wanted the D. So I gave it to her, and she finished 3 times. 10 out of 10 would catfish again. Next story. Alright, this happened on Xbox Live. I was 18 at the time, and I'm also a guy. Well, puberty and my Xbox mic didn't get along, so I sounded like a girl sometimes. Now, we were playing Halo one time when a guy asks me if I'm a girl, and my friend responds for me with, yes, her name's Diana, and then we play with it from there. This guy has to just start up a party with us, so we back out and pick him up. We play the rest of the night with this guy on Halo before getting off Xbox for the night. I get back on the next night and get spammed with invites by him again. I make sure I talk normal so I actually sound like a guy, and he learns that his new Xbox Live crush is actually a dude. He removed me as a friend and never contacted me again. 8 out of 10 would be a girl for giggles on Xbox Live again. All right, for all my fellow Halo lovers out there, I'm going to tell you a little Halo secret about women. Women don't use armor lock on Halo Reach. Women use jetpack and hologram, okay? So if there's a girl saying, I'm a woman, and she's using armor lock on Halo Reach, that's a dude, okay? You have been warned. That's my life advice for you. God, I love Halo. Anyway, next story. So, I got catfished once, was about 19 at the time. This guy had used pictures from at least 5 years prior when he has been in the military, and he gained a considerable amount of weight in that time. He also lied about his height and ended up being a few inches shorter than me. But anyhow, I went through with coffee and met up with some of his friends who happened to come in and had a pretty good time. Except when one of his friends said something he didn't like. He completely freaked out on them and started yelling at them in public. At this point, I excused myself as gracefully as I could and I went home. He asked me out again a few days later. I politely declined. For the next year, I would get random friend requests and messages on Facebook from profiles that he made, as well as text messages telling me how awful of a person I was for being so shallow, for not going out with him and giving him another chance. I had to block him on my phone, but it didn't stop the Facebook harassment for a while. Next story. I believe I've been catfished twice. The first one is very long-winded, so I'll just talk about this one. I was about 10 or 11 at the time. I was a quiet kid, to be honest. I went on chat rooms to speak to people about music, etc. I got talking to one guy, and we got on really well, and he said he was the same age as me and lived close by. We swapped numbers, and he tried getting me to send nudes. I didn't. I wasn't that naive. Then he started sending me them. And turns out the guy was actually in his late 40s and liked little kids. My parents got contacted by the police as he was trying to groom me. Next story. We weren't catfished, but my best friend's boyfriend, Mark, had all of his pictures used by a catfish who started a fake profile with a different name. The catfisher went as far as to make fake profiles of our group of friends using our pictures. We found out when he/she used my friend's name along with her pictures, and we all asked her why she had 2 Facebook accounts. The person being catfished then messaged my friend trying to start drama thinking they were after the same guy. We tried to convince the girl she was being catfished by some weirdo, but she wouldn't believe us for a long time. Mark ended up sending her a picture of his license with his information blurred out to show that he was the real person in the photos. All the profiles were then finally deleted. Creeped us all out for a while. Next story. My sister and I have the suspicions our mother was a catfish. All the signs were there. The bad part was that she used my sister's pictures. You see, my mother had asked my sister one time how to make multiple Facebook accounts, who would close her laptop whenever you entered the room, kept tape over the camera on the computer, and her phone would ring all the time, but she would never answer it. My sister told me one time she was out with our mother and our mom's phone rings. My mom's getting kind of panicky, so she asked my sister to answer it. At first, my sister hesitates but agrees. She said there was a guy on the other end with a funny accent she didn't recognize. And I guess they started asking her random questions on what she looked like, and stupidly, my sister answers him. She said that the guy asked her what happened to her Irish accent, and my sister said she got creeped out and hung up on the guy. Shortly after that, my sister moved out and got her own place. Next story. Pretty boring and not quite catfished, but she just left out an important feature from her photos. All her pics were closed-mouth smiles. So, we met for coffee. She smiled and had a massive growth along her gums that deformed her teeth and looked like they bled on a regular basis. I've never fought so hard to look someone in the eye when having a conversation before. We had our coffee, talked, then went our separate ways. I messaged her later saying she was great, but I wasn't feeling a romantic connection, and that was it. Next story. A couple of years ago, I was chatting with a very good-looking guy on OkCupid for a bit. He would make plans with me, then have to cancel because something would come up with his kid. One day, I saw a picture of him on Pinterest that a friend pinned. Turns out the very good-looking guy lived somewhere else with his wife, and they had a successful blog, hence the pictures. I confronted the guy about it, and he said he'd joined OkCupid to keep an eye on his ex-wife, kid's mom, and found me in the process. He said his goal wasn't to catfish me, but he'd already put himself in this situation with the fake account. His loss. Next story. While in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and the base wasn't far from Kansas State. I met this girl online who said she was a cheerleader, sent me pictures of herself, etc. We talked for a few weeks, usual stuff, getting a little hot and heavy, decided to meet. So I went to meet her at the mall in Manhattan, town near the college, and I show up to where we are supposed to meet, and there's just a bunch of teenagers there, so I wait. A few minutes go by, and this fat 15-year-old girl walks over and introduces herself using the name of the girl I met online. Turns out she was using pictures of her older sister and saying it was her. She begged me to give her a chance, and I just told her to F off and walked away. Next story. I don't know if Tinder pictures of a person in the past 80 pounds lighter counts as catfish, but if I was catfished, drugged, and SA'd in my own home. It was typical Tinder, Netflix, and chill thing at my place. Go ahead, blame the victim. And when she came to the door, it was obvious. But I didn't want to be rude, so we sat away from each other and I had a couple of beers before going to the washroom. Came back, finished my beer. 10 minutes later, I was paralyzed, but stayed awake, somehow erect as a rock. And then she essayed me, and all I could do was stare at the ceiling, while she screamed, "Do you find mommy sexy?" for hours. When I was able to move, when I was strong enough that I thought I'd be able to defend myself, I called 911 on speaker in case she attacked me and told her to leave, and she left. The profile was deleted and the police couldn't find her since I had nothing to give them. A million showers didn't wash away the pain I felt. I'm ridiculed by friends and family whenever I try to talk about it. It's always my fault. I'm gay, weak, or I'm lying. Next story. I don't think I was ever catfished, but I'll make a post from the sort of catfisher perspective. I say kind of because I never had any intention of meeting or forming a relationship with anyone. But when I was about 10 or 11, I'm much older now, in the neighborhood of 30, I got my first computer and found my way into an online game with a small, close community. I thought it would be hilarious to pretend to be a girl and see how people react and stuff. So I started playing with that as my identity. Now this game has a really small community, under 500 players at its peak. In the community, it is very dedicated. This means once you're known, everyone knows you. You get to know everyone. You play the game with these people day after day, hours and hours. You have conversations, howling laughter, and tearful heartbreak when someone is missing or hurt in real life. You share your thoughts and your dreams. They became friends in the most real sense, no different than real-life friends. And I too became a part of the fold. And I formed especially close bonds with a few, as is natural, and we became close like we've all known each other all of our lives. One day, after years of spending time with those people every day, I woke up and realized I'm trapped. I've been bonding with these people under a false gender for years. I know the most intimate details of their lives. I've helped them through depression and moving and money problems and fights with their real-life friends. I've been living with this for over a decade now. We're all family at this point. We've played several games together, migrating together. My group has grown. With each game, we find more people that bond with us and follow us to the next one. There's never been any attempt to meet or cybersex or even flirt ever. All of it is 100% platonic. So in the end, my gender doesn't really come into play at all except for when I mention my wife. I say husband instead of wife to keep the genders making sense. The person they know is completely me. Where I live, my job, my accomplishments, my pets, my dreams, and personality, there is zero fabrication. I've never shown a picture of myself, so there's no fake appearance. If I went to bed tonight and woke up a woman, I would be exactly the person they think I am. And I've wanted to shed this burden for a long time and just be myself through and through, but I'm terrified. I feel like they'll be betrayed and hate me. It's kind of terrible. It's a weight on me, and I hate my young self sometimes for creating these circumstances. We still get online and party together almost every day. We sit around and chat for hours. It's a family we have, and I love them like it. I've watched some of them get married and have kids. They've been there for me through so much and vice versa. I just got in too deep before I realized what I had done. Now I'm stuck. Next story. About 7 years ago, I catfished my then-boyfriend because I had a hunch he was trying to cheat on me. I had caught him chatting online with other women a couple of times already, and it wasn't just innocent conversation either. Very explicit dirty talk, begging for nudie pictures, trying to get him to come over, etc. Well, he cried and groveled each time I caught him. It was just chatting. He wasn't actually going to do anything. He'll never do it again, blah, blah, blah. I didn't catch him again for a while, but I just had that feeling, you know? I should have just dumped him after the first offense, I know, but I was a lot more naive and forgiving in my 20s. Anyway, I made a fake Yahoo profile with some random hot girl's MySpace pictures, named myself Ashley Adams, and made up a backstory that included cheerleading and nude modeling. The profile, it was comically fake, but I knew he would fall for it because he wasn't too bright, especially when boobs were involved. So I added him as a contact and waited for the first chat. Didn't have to wait long at all either. As soon as he popped online, he took the bait. "Hey sexy, wanna chat?" "Why yes, Ashley would love to chat, and she thinks you're super cute too." He asked me for nudes, asked me where I lived, and was happy to hear that I only lived one town over and could be there in half an hour. I agreed to come over, and he gave me his address and told me to just come right in and jump on him. Oh, that man. I knew it. I waited about 15 minutes and then headed over to his apartment. I went right in like he requested, and I saw his expression change from excitement to "oh crap" when he saw me walk in instead of Ashley. He asked me what I was doing there, and I acted innocent and said I just wanted to spend some time with him. I could tell he was trying hard to come up with a reason why I couldn't stay, but since he was hanging out in his boxers with the lights dimmed, he could think of none that weren't incriminating, so I made myself ride it home. I didn't let him know that he was busted. I just sat there and enjoyed watching him squirm and glance nervously at the front door every time he heard a noise. He must have been terrified, expecting Ashley to show up any minute while his girlfriend was cuddled up right there next to him, and I hung out for several hours just relishing in his discomfort, and then left him with blue balls after he realized Ashley wasn't going to show and tried to get frisky with me instead. Sorry, babe, I'm suddenly not feeling very well. And I did dump him a few days later after finding proof of real-life cheating on his phone. But I gotta say, catfishing was actually pretty fun. Stupid MF. Next story. I started chatting with an army guy who was a peacekeeper in DRC. We just started chatting casually. I was 21 to 22 when we started, and he said he was 27. And I really don't remember what we spoke about, but I developed a huge crush on him. He said he loved me. I said it back. He then said that he would use his break to fly to see me. He represented himself as a 27-year-old single guy, and he came across as having very high morals and being an absolute toughie. I started to almost worship him, and I placed him way above me. One day told him, and a short while before he was supposed to fly to see me, about my drunken 21-year-old party where I told my two best guy friends that I loved them. He got all quiet and became jealous, and something changed after that. We couldn't talk as usual. At this point, we had never even spoken to each other. Everything was on chat. One day, we were just having a normal conversation, and suddenly he threw it in my face that I had gotten drunk. Like, that was supposed to make me feel bad. But what I didn't like was that he used a thing like that to try and hurt me. Like he was waiting for the chance. Anyway, suddenly, he was no longer in touch, and I was completely devastated. I couldn't reach him. I thought he told me his real name, so I kept looking for his name online, and I found nothing. I tried over and over again, and I found nothing. I was brokenhearted. Then I finally had a brainwave and Googled his ID and found that he had lied about his name. He was 40-something. He really was a peacekeeper. I also found that he was known to catfish other people. He even created fake dating profiles as a woman. Someone posted a comment on one of his profiles revealing his name and position. I eventually created a fake Facebook profile and added him as a friend. I found out he is divorced and has a young daughter, and his statuses show that he's a total douchebag. He really was a lieutenant colonel though, and has been mentioned in a UN web page, so I got over it all real fast. Next story. I got catfished a few years ago by an online friend that I met through Fanfiction. For several months, we built up what we thought was a tight-knit group of fans for The Walking Dead because we were all talking about the show anyway. We even had our own forum. The girl/woman was a fanfic author of long fic that updated almost daily. She also wrote SOA fanfiction. We were talking like hundreds of thousands of words per story, multiple books per universe, 18 to 13K posted daily. Damn, I loved those stories. Every morning when I would wake up for work or shortly after, there would be a new chapter. We would message each other back and forth on my breaks at work. She worked on a horse ranch and her husband was in a biker club. She knew a lot about the dynamics of clubs, which made her Sons of Anarchy fanfiction really realistic seeming. And she was forever adding little things that definitely made it seem like she knew things about farm life. She had photo bucket accounts of her horses, goats, and other pets. Heck, she had videos of her riding and her farmhands working at shows. She played hockey and loved leather clothing with fringe. And when she missed a few days of riding, she had hurt her hand because her pet snake had bitten her. Another time there was a big club dinner and she said she would post a day later. And everything seemed to be followed up with pictures or posts on Twitter, etc. People had her phone number and would call her and text her. Then those big thunderstorms knocked out her power. A lot of the states were knocked out, and I didn't really think much of it because I live in Canada. There was nothing I could do to help. She got some Wi-Fi at a friend's place and messaged that she had no power in her house, just the backup generators for the barns, but was hoping to have power by the end of the week. A day later, she PM'd a few people and made a few tweets, and after that, nothing. For months, it was radio silence. Not so much as a single post. We got worried. The group grew apart without her supporting it. Then I posted asking if anyone had heard from her in a while. Another girl in the forum asked if she could Skype me, and I passed along my information to her through PM. And she showed me some information she had found because she was too worried about our friend. To go from daily posting to nothing in a week, it was scary. We were worried that she had been in an accident or something else terrible had happened. The other girl had tried to find out her last name based on a photo she had shared of our friend's hockey team. A local sports team would make the local paper, right? Well, they did. Only she wasn't in the photo. So my roommate helped on my end, and between the three of us, we reverse looked up the large majority of her photos. Her biker husband was a K-list reality TV star who once tried to climb Mount Everest and was once romantically linked to Cher. The pictures of her farm were from a real estate website. Her horses and other animals were from animal sales. Her farmhands were locally famous cowboys that performed with traveling carnivals and the like. Even her riding videos were ripped from YouTube. We found an old live journal that we assumed was hers. The icon was Tig, her favorite character, and the names were very, very similar. And it was several years old. And we were crushed. Eventually, I wrote up all the information into a collective post, how she had been lying to all of us and apparently been doing it for years to various degrees. I sent the link to those of us who had been most worried about her. We all went through a sort of strange grieving process. It was like she really had died. A few months after that, suddenly and without warning, a new post, then a chapter, and even a new story. We were all shocked and confused. She claimed that there had been some fallout with the bike club and she had to go into hiding. There had been a lot of people arrested and the wives were all gone to ground. So I sent her a PM, and I know I'm not the only one, and I told her that we all knew she had lied, and told her that we really had been concerned for her and to please consider that we had called our group the safe space for a reason, and she could come clean to us. And it turns out, she had actually run away from club life. Her wonderful husband was a lie. Her real husband was abusive and manipulative. He was her second husband. He had taken her on when her first husband went to prison. She'd been living a lie for years because her real life was so terrible. Her snake bite? It was actually a badly sprained wrist from abuse. Then she hadn't posted in such a long time because he found out she had friends online and beat her enough to send her to the hospital. She'd finally left him and moved back to her parents' farm. She hadn't seen them in over a decade, and she was on all kinds of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication and going to therapy, just trying to get her life back on track. She messaged me a few times after that, and I would try to check in to see how she was doing every once in a while, but she never posted again though. I don't know what happened. I don't know if she's even alive. The group and I, we don't talk anymore. It's been almost 2 years since I heard anything, but I still wonder sometimes if she's watching us. She was so active. That was such a big part of her life. Would it really have been so difficult to get another account and start over? Graciela, if you're reading this, I still wonder all the time what happened to you, and I miss my friend. Next story. I catfished a kid my first year of high school, made it super unbelievable because at the time I wasn't planning a catfish, I was planning a prank. He ended up falling in love with her after a few days, and so I had to tell him at our local fair. I didn't even give her a face or a last name. Next story. I haven't seen many people admitting to being catfish yet, so I'll give you my story. I was a catfish, or what was called a fake before the TV show for 3 years. It started out on a website called Tagged, which is almost just like Facebook but less game invites. I was 11 when I discovered it, and being the kid I was with low self-esteem, I decided that I wasn't going to use pictures of myself but of someone else. I didn't start out with the mindset of tricking people and creating emotional attachments with them. I was just an 11-year-old girl who was too embarrassed to use her own face. And it wasn't long before I showed my genius idea to my best friend at the time. And then it wasn't long after that she joined me on the website with her own fake name and fake face. We created a backstory for our 2 new identities. We were fraternal twin sisters who lived separately and in different states. We decided on that to explain the lack of pictures together. You'd be surprised how many people were actually fooled by that. And after that, it just snowballed. I would describe the feeling as a power trip. My fake sister and I became virtual queens of that website. At least at the times we were. We had many people convinced that we were the real deal, because apparently also the pictures we were using were used a lot, but people defended us against people that claimed we weren't the real thing. At the time, it felt great. All of the attention was overwhelming, and the compliments that weren't meant for me felt real, and I never wanted it to end. But, just like all things, it came to an end, about 2 years later. I made many friends on that website, but I never actually entered a romantic relationship with anyone. That comes way later. The friends I made on that website are people that I will never forget, but eventually they stopped logging on and so did we. However, that wasn't the end of it. A friend of ours on Tagged told us that he was moving websites, and so we decided to go with him. And so started the reign on a website called My Yearbook, the cesspool of all social media. Starting out there, it was a little bit harder. There were already people who had established themselves on that website, so that backlash from that was a little bit more harsh. You never knew when you were going to add someone who was going to spam your profile to shreds, the catfish's worst nightmare, but it was on this website that I met someone who became very important to me. Let's call him A. A was the first and only person who I developed a somewhat romantic relationship with. As romantic as it can get for a 13-year-old, that is. The development in our relationship was fast, really fast. In just a few months, I felt closer to him than I did to any of the other people that I had met during this time in my life. Eventually, I escalated to phone calls and texting, which were okay with me. He couldn't see my face, and that's all that mattered. But then he wanted to video chat, and it became harder and harder. Excuses became harder to come up with, and then he told me that he loved me. That was the final straw. I couldn't do it anymore. I had people profess their love to me before throughout this whole escapade, but never had it felt so genuine as it did when he said it. I knew stuff about him that not even his real-life friends knew. So I talked it out with my fake sister, aka my best friend, and we decided to call it quits and to come clean to him. To say that he was furious was an understatement. That conversation, it was hard, and then it was over very quickly, and he refused to ever talk to me ever again. Not that I can blame him. So, since then, I haven't catfished. I've lost all contact with anyone I knew in that time, and A has gone down a bad path that I feel like is partially my fault. So if you ever feel like catfishing is a good idea, you're wrong. It's horrible to F with people's emotions like that, and it's horrible to F with your own emotions just like that. So just don't do it. It's a bad idea. And that's the short version of my story. I think both of those accounts, they're still up. Probably going to check them out now out of pure curiosity. I left out details, but if anyone is interested or has questions, feel free to ask me. Next story. My sister was catfished by none other than her supposed best friend of 7 years. Her best friend grew up with a guy. Let's call him John. Anyway, she gave my sister John's instant message handle and phone number because she thought they'd get along. My sister began talking to him on a regular basis. At first, it was only friendly, but then John showed romantic interest. So a relationship started and went on for about 3 years. All the while, he made excuses for not being able to hang out with her in person. It was always messaging and phone calls. She was a little skeptical, but since her best friend grew up with this person and knew who he was, she just brushed it off and thought eventually they would meet. Then, out of nowhere, after 3 years, he suddenly dropped all contact with her. She was heartbroken. She wanted an explanation. She asked for my help since she had some personal info about him. We did some deep digging, and lo and behold, his pictures and other things traced back to the Facebook of a random guy on the other side of the world. It didn't take rocket science to figure out that the person behind it was obviously her best friend. She was so sick to her stomach and upset beyond words, so I contacted her best friend and told her we knew everything, and she'd better have some answers. All she kept saying was, "I don't know, I'm sorry," and years of deceit and betrayal, and that's the best she could come up with. My sister basically said go to hell and deleted her from everything. It hasn't been in contact with her since. Next story. I matched with this cute Latino girl on Tinder. We texted on Kik for a couple of days, and she seemed a bit obsessive and clingy, but I kind of liked it since she was really cute. Finally, I asked her out, and when I met her, she looked a few years older and looked like she gained an extra 30 pounds. And I would have been cool with it if I wasn't getting stalker vibes from her all night, so I didn't give her my actual phone number or any personal info. Deleted Kik immediately after the date, too. So, really quick, OP said he met a Latino girl, but I just want to point out that I believe what OP should say is Latina girl. Just so that you know, it's a small thing, but I caught it immediately. The only thing worse than that would be calling her Latinx. Don't do that. Just don't. I haven't seen that term in years, and I am so happy. Just forget Latinx ever happened, and let's just move on with our lives. Next story. So, a few years ago, I made a playlist on 8 tracks that got a few thousand plays and a few hundred likes. One day, I got a message on my Tumblr saying something along the lines of, "Saw your playlist, you seem pretty awesome." Then, a few days after that, I got a friend request from a gorgeous guy. Turned out it was the guy that messaged me on Tumblr. He was asking me about good music and what I could recommend. We talked for a few months, then stopped talking for about a year. After about a year, he messaged me again and we exchanged phone numbers. We exchanged pictures and kept messaging each other for a few months. He sent pictures that convinced me it was really him. He would talk that he wanted to come visit me. Then, almost a year of talking, he completely stopped all contact with me. I kind of blew up at him because I was so pissed that I never got to meet him or even talk to him on the phone. He later told me that he lost his job and had to move back to his hometown. He apologized and I accepted, but we never spoke again. And I've Googled and researched enough to make myself go crazy. He was somewhat of a public figure. He played sports semi-professionally, and I just recently found out he's now a model. I'll never know if it was actually him or not, but I had to have been catfished because this guy was too gorgeous to be into lil ol' me. He used to tell me he would read Reddit, so if he's reading this right now, I hope he remembers. Or he has no clue who I am. I've tried to Facebook message him, but he got rid of his Facebook. For years now, all I've ever wanted to do was ask him if he knew who I was and what we talked about. Unfortunately, since I was so consumed and obsessed, I eventually had to get rid of the evidence that we even spoke. I deleted all of the text messages, all of the Facebook messages, and all of the pictures. It was making me crazy and I had to move on. The only thing I still have is the message he sent me on Tumblr 5 years ago. It still drives me crazy that I'll never know who catfished me, or if I even was catfished. Next story. Met a fellow on a dating website, seemed nice, said he moved from Scotland recently. Talked on the phone a few times and he had the accent. Yeah. When we met though, he looked nothing like his photos. Bald, fatter, older, like late 40s, not 25. I was 21. He wasn't Scottish at all. He did impressions apparently and went on to show me all the different voices he could do. So he was just putting on an accent when we spoke on the phone. Yep, I had brought a friend with me because, well, meeting dudes from the internet. Thankfully, because I am super shy and awkward, I excused myself to the bathroom and texted my friend, "Make him leave, I'm hiding in here until he's gone." And she texted me back a few minutes later, "Done, come on out." And I came out and she's laughing her ass off, and I guess she just turned to him and went, "She's not interested, you should go now." And so he left. He sent me a bunch of messages, bickering me out after. Lovely. And yeah, I know, not the most mature way for me to handle it. He was like the fourth guy I'd met off of a dating site, which was my entire dating experience. And the first time it went weird or bad, I did not know what to do. I was much more thorough in my screening afterwards and wouldn't meet until I was certain they were who they said they were. I don't know if that fully counts as catfished, but yeah. Next story. Using a throwaway because I am always paranoid that this person is lurking around, and I have no doubt that she's probably reading through the answers on this thread looking for mine. So, the very long story of how I caught the catfish using my pictures and information. P.S. I'm not the best storyteller, so bear with me. But back in high school, my friends and I would always find fake profiles made of us on various social networking sites. It was weird, but yeah, never highly alarming, more annoying than anything. Until one day I am on Last FM, looking through my neighbors and see that the person with the most music in common with me is a profile using my pictures. So I confront this person like any 16-year-old would do, and I'm like, "What the F?" in the comments section. The account was then deleted immediately after that. It was that weird to know that whoever this was using my pictures and listening to the same exact music as me. Anyway, crap like this continued for years. There wasn't really much I could do and nothing that was really harmful happening. Fast forward to my 21st birthday, I'm expecting a package in the mail from my aunt. The UPS dude finally comes and I'm about to rip open the present when I see that it's not from my aunt. It's from somebody named Ken. I open up the package and inside is a pillow drenched in some foul-smelling cologne, a necklace with a really beat-up heart pendant, cough drops, and a card signed by Ken. I'm thoroughly freaked out at this point because I have no idea who this dude is. I throw everything in the garage and look up this dude on Facebook. I message him, and he won't believe that I don't know him, that we've been talking for years and all this nonsense. At this point, I am feeling like an effing detective. This 30-year-old dude is finally starting to believe me. He said he had seen my profile before and tried to add me, under suspicions that the catfish wasn't who she said she was because she never would want to video chat or meet up. But she would tell him the reason for not adding him was because I had a boyfriend, which I did, and she wanted to keep their relationship a secret. So he starts telling me about her, that they've been talking for the past 5 years, and he sends me a link to her Tumblr. And she's not only using my pictures, but also my whole personal life. This dude knew all about me, ranging from my dad dying due to his alcoholism to what my friends and I were doing a few nights before. We tried to devise a plan to figure out who she really was, but he was very reluctant about it, which I thought strange. He ends up telling me that it wouldn't even matter who she actually was because the connection they share is so deep. In my mind, I'm just like, dude, you literally know nothing about this person. Why? But anyway, our clever plan is that he'd keep talking to her as if nothing was up and to try and get information out of her. But that definitely backfired because then he stopped talking to me. A few days later, I get a message on Facebook from the catfish, a picture of Ninetails, not her, and they're threatening me. I need to tell her what was in the box or else she's going to take my life to hell, and I was just like, no. So she starts hacking into mine and my friends' accounts and just being generally annoying. After a lot of other drama, I convince her to talk to me on AIM and end up getting her to act like an actual human by empathizing with her and feigning understanding. Of course, your insecurities are a great reason to F with other people's emotions, of course. Find out, she's a 17-year-old girl from Iowa. I even get her to get on cam with me so I could see she was telling the truth. So yeah, that 30-year-old dude was talking to a 17-year-old for 5 years. Let that sink in for a second. Ew. And so I kept tabs on her for a while to see if she was up to anything, but I pretty much just forgot about it all for a long time. Occasionally, I'd get a message on Tumblr from someone I didn't know telling me that they miss me. It seemed like she talked to a lot of mentally unstable people. I still get messages from a guy that will just ramble about his OCD and how I'm the only person he could ever talk to. And I feel really bad for these people. Besides that, everything seems to have calmed down though. I ended up moving across the country when I was 22. I'm on OkCupid looking for new friends and perhaps bang buddies when a guy messages me, asking if I still wanted to meet up and smoke, then tells me that someone posing as me had been trading my nudes. I was a cam girl at the time and was doing so for effing World of Warcraft subscriptions, so I definitely knew it was her again because 30-year-old dude and her met playing League of Legends. Confront her, she blocks me. At this point, it's more serious, but I just try to brush it off. Nothing happens again until I'm 25 at my last job and a guy comes in. Catfish was talking to him for a year and a half on WhatsApp and told him to meet me there. Thank effing God this guy isn't a psycho. He's a lawyer from Canada, I guess, and tells me to find a lawyer in the States right away. So now I feel like I have to be in hiding for eternity because this crap just won't stop happening. It's probably one of the most annoying things I have ever had to deal with. Next story. Yes, I have been catfished, but not in a romantic sense. About 13 years ago, I met a girl named Amber on a Harry Potter board. We became friends and spoke every day. She lived in England. As time went on, we became closer and she told me all about her family. She had an older brother, a twin sister, and a younger brother. After about 3 years of knowing her, she ended up telling me she and her sister had found out that they were adopted and were actually named Elena and Anuska. Around age 15, her sister Anuska became pregnant and had triplets. I always had an inkling that the stuff she was telling me wasn't true, but it didn't really sink in until she sent me a picture of her and her twin. It was obviously photoshopped. She took it down after I called her out on it. Eventually, she started emailing me from an account that had an odd last name. I asked her about it, and she said it was her cousin's. She sent me a song on iTunes that had the same last name, and I asked her about it, and she told me it was a fake name her father used. When Deathly Hallows was released, she sent me a package with the British version, and again, that last name was on it. I had known this girl since she was about 11. Finally, at age 18, I asked her if she was really Alana, and she told me no, that her name was Emma. She didn't have a twin or a younger brother, and that when she was little, her parents forbade her from using her real name, and that she had just made up a whole life to escape from her real one. We are still friends, and even though she lied to me for the majority of our friendship, we are still close. Next story. Yeah, my time to tell the story of the ham galaxy. Okay, so I had recently gotten divorced from my wife and was pretty busy with work and had no real friends, so I was on OkCupid. Well, I find this pretty girl on OkCupid. Funny, smart, nice picture, only showing her face though, should have known. Now I'm thinking, wow, this could be cool. We talk for about a week or so and I'm like, hey, let's go out to dinner. So, a few things I've learned. When on OkCupid, never go to dinner as a first date. Always get a body shot. Never go someplace nice. Well, I go to Anthony's restaurant, nice upscale seafood place, and I arrived before she did. So I text her, hey, I'm waiting in the lobby. Then across the room is a girl who is gorgeous, just drop dead gorgeous, and looks exactly like this woman's face. So I walk over and introduce myself. It's not her. Damn it! And at this point, I get a response on my text message saying she's here. Cool, I think to suave myself. 15 minutes later, I'm still in the lobby, wondering what the hell, did she leave? What's going on? I find out a minute later, as the largest human being I've ever seen on actual legs is walking across the parking lot towards the restaurant. Like, holy crap, just probably about 400 to 500 pounds, maybe 5'1". On top of this, it's her. I can tell it's her. And it all makes sense now. Chubby cheeks, no body shot, 15 minutes to cross a parking lot, damn it. She hadn't seen me yet. I swear to God, I wanted to run out of the restaurant and bail just so freaking hard. She hadn't seen me. She didn't know me from the waiter. But, I didn't bail. I felt that would have been unbelievably rude. In retrospect, I totally should have bailed. So she finally climbs the stairs, gets in the restaurant by the grace of God and introduces herself. We find a table in the back and start talking. So at this point, I'm like, well, I'm gonna be here anyway. Maybe she'll be interesting and I can at least have an excuse to eat at Anthony's. And so I call this woman the Ham Galaxy, because while being an abnormally large ham beast, she also knew damn nothing about anything. In particular, about the sun, or space, or whatever. We got on the topic because I had recently purchased a telescope and had decided to start stargazing. It was pretty cool. Well, I mentioned that to her, and I swear to God, the first thing she said was, "Whoa, can you see the sun with that?" Next was, I didn't know the sun was a star. Turns out she was actually in an engineering program at Boeing as an intern or something. Anyway, the night continued, me just completely at a loss as to how she could possibly exist, and our food came. This woman ate 95% of a plate of calamari, her salmon, my salmon. She politely asked if she could try it while grabbing the entire salmon with her fork and putting it on her plate. She ate a dessert pudding and a basket of biscuits. At this point, I was like, okay, thanks for the evening, walked over to the waiter, handed him $150 and left. But it gets better. As I'm walking away, this woman has the audacity to ask me for a ride to her car on the other side of the parking lot. F it, can't get any worse, I thought. My car was right in the front, so whatever. Well, F me, I was driving a little Honda Civic and the whole car was leaning to the right the whole ordeal. I actually bottomed out on the right side of a speed bump, getting her whale lord self to her car 200 feet away. Bad shocks, old car, so yeah, body shots. TLDR, got catfished by a bipedal gigaham, paid toll and minor car damage. Next story. A young woman on Tinder asked me out to a club to get a drink. After a moment of reflection, I promptly changed out of my pajamas and into my nicest shirt. What's the worst that could happen? Then, soon after I pay the cover/coat check, my new acquaintance was nowhere to be found. Her messages, upstairs, just come find me, and where are you? And I guess you don't want to have fun tonight, sad face, proved to be no more than a ruse, which left some hipster kid wearing a J. Crew button-down in a club, playing exclusively heavy metal. So I talked to 3 Quebecos regulars about the no-show, and they bought me a gross-out shot that I actually kind of liked, threw me into my first mosh pit, and taught me the intricacies of Montreal French slang. Alright kids, as I'm sure you know, catfishing is a no-no. It's not cool, don't do it, like that one person mentioned earlier. And I did like the perspective that we got a few stories where the person said he had known that girl from 11 to 18 and she was lying the whole time. And he said that she said she was catfishing to essentially escape her own life, which was apparently terrible. I'm sure I've heard stuff like that, and I'm always interested in the mindset and the psychology of the people who do catfish, but that was an interesting one. I'm not excusing it, but I'm just like, I understand a bit more. But as for me, I like to share relevant personal stories, but I feel like I've told all of my catfish-related stories before. I do online gaming, so that of course has happened over the years, but not recently. Not in this decade. 2020's no catfishing so far in the friend group, so I think that's good. In the 2010s, I cannot say that is the case. But we're doing good now. But anyway, guys, we're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting, and have a really good day. Bye-bye.